Thank you for coming back. It's Thursday. It's time for Q&A with Leigh. And yes, I know that you're going to have a hard time paying attention because you're staring around at the messy house behind me, but I think that's the sign of success, or that's what I heard. All right, let's dig in. Here's what you need answers for today. And for the record, if you have your own question, either add it in the comments or send me a DM. I'll answer your questions too. All right, number one. How do you break bad news to clients, Leigh Brown? For example, their offer wasn't accepted, the existing offer fell through, etc. Okay, so the first thing I want you to remember is that bad news is only bad when it's wildly unexpected. One of your jobs as a professional is to set expectations. I mean, that's just a good life skill for all of us. So I want you to time travel back to the original listing presentation as a realtor, your first buyer consultation. What are you doing to set up that this could happen? I mean, let's be real. If you look at what most realtors put on social media or in their marketing, it's always the good news. Yay, rainbows and sunshine and unicorns and woo. Reality is most real estate transactions have troublesome moments in them, whether it's offer not being accepted, offer falling through, home inspection, surveys, appraisals, all these things. So in that initial meeting, I want you to ask this question, all right? Get your pens and pencils and write this down. Do I have your permission to tell you the truth? The future client at that point is going to say yes. And then I want you to go ahead and explain that during the process, lots of things could go sideways, and most of them are wildly unexpected because none of us know from transaction to transaction what's going to go sideways in that one. You know why? Because every house is different. Every commercial property is different. Every piece of land is different. Every buyer is different. Every buyer's agent is different. Every seller's different. Every seller's agent is different. And then we're not even talking about the inspectors and the surveyors and the banks and the lenders and all those people, right? So many moving parts. Our job as professionals is to let people know these things can happen. Now, you set that stage at the very beginning. You fast forward to the moment where something went sideways. And for example, well, let's just say the buyer's offer didn't go through. If you told them at the beginning that it might take 2, 3, 4, 5 times before they get their offer through. And by the way, y'all, that's in any market conditions. Sometimes, like during the COVID era, every house seemed to be in multiple offers. Now that things are stabilizing a little, it's house by house. But if your buyer has a budget and they're chasing a house that's above their budget, you might get it, you might not. You've got to let them know that the risk they take is always that the offer doesn't go through. And so the question I ask too, when I'm setting up all these stages, and I learned this from my dad, is your stomach going to hurt if you don't win? If their answer is yes, then you have to change the terms in your offer because you don't want them to be physically ill if they don't get the property. If they're like, no, I'm cool if it doesn't, all right, then you already set the stage that they might not win. It's all about communication. It's not that hard, really. But then you think about the emotion that gets tied up in every house, every real estate transaction. Your job as a professional, absorb the emotion. So you're going to say to them, all right, this is going to hurt a little bit. It's going to sting. We did not win. Let them know it's okay to sting. It's okay to hurt. Let them talk their way through it. But what if we didn't? Let them talk through it. Don't interrupt. And then you explain, all right, that must mean there's something better out there. I will tell you, in 22 years of practice in real estate, every time something's fallen through, it's because something better is on the other side. And I know that can be hard to accept when they did get their emotions wrapped up in something. But every time, y'all, every single time, and I know it sounds really woo-woo, but it's true. In real estate, the right house works itself out. The right offer works itself out. Now, for the seller whose deal fell through, you've got to remind them too, this is what happens, right? It's why we as realtors have to maintain great professional relationships. If you are thoughtful and kind to your fellow realtors out there, then if the first buyer does fall through, they're more likely to talk to you when you call and explain this house has re-entered the marketplace than if you were ugly at the time that you accepted the offer and were not returning phone calls and emails when they had questions about the disclosure statement or some such. Think about this. All of your reactions at the moment of consultation, at the moment of question, at the moment of anything are going to have ripple effects. So, you get it? It's all about setting expectations. And so how do you break it to them? You're calm, you're cool, and you're direct. You are not emotional. You are not ugly. You are not flying off the handle. And you are especially not talking smack about the other side, because you don't know all the internal things that went on their end before everything fell through. Don't make assumptions. Just lead forward. Okay. Lots of emotional answers there, right? All right. Next question. Haley Brown, what are you reading right now? Look, I love to read. It's no lie. I am a big nerd. Always have been. Although luckily it's far more popular to be a nerd now than back when I was in school being called Four Eyes and Railroad Tracks. So here's what I'm reading right now. I've got this book called Grip. It's about the art of working smart. Frankly, I'm having trouble getting through this, but I know I need it. So I'm going to keep rebooting and trying. Now this is why I read real books. I like to dog ear where the big ideas are, and then I keep a journal where I can write down what meant something to me and what I want to really drive home, because I am a kinesthetic learner. That's why I don't do a lot on my Kindle except for reading my smut, because I don't need to remember that. I need to be able to find my notes later. Now, I told you I'm a nerd. I'm reading A Distant Mirror about the 14th century because, as with most of us, I feel like everything happening is brand new and it's an emergency right now. Reality is a lot of the upheaval that's going on in society already happened. So I'm educating myself on a different era to give myself some peace and hope that this too will sort itself out over time. I'm also reading The Leadership Challenge. I bought this mainly because Barry Posner is one of the authors and I think he's amazing. I'm sure James Kouzes is fine too. And I really want to think differently about leadership because I don't like silos. I abhor the lack of transparency, and I can't stand the phrase, "We've always done it this way," but means I have to challenge myself to get out of my own ruts and look at things differently. And frankly, everything I'm looking at right now in my own leadership challenges is how we create more through lines. And that works in your business as well as in any leadership role of how do you look behind you and look forward and then build connectivity the whole way through. So this book is going to be one I learned into for that. And the last book I'm reading right now is called Mindset, The Psychology of Success. I'm frankly reading this because of the first bullet point, parenting. I am in a space in my life where I have two teenagers that are wildly different from each other, and I question my own ability every single day because it's hard. So that's what I'm reading right now. It's always more than one book, by the way. So this is like my TV. You won't find me watching a lot of current TV. I'd rather change channels by looking at a book. Okay, I knew that you would. Next question. Where do you go to stay on top of industry current events? I can only speak to the real estate industry. So if you're watching this and you're from another field, then I wish you the best and tell me where you go for information. For my current information, I'm always going to keep an eye on what comes out of NAR research. There's a specific NAR research account. I like to see the data and the numbers. That means more to me than somebody's narrative. I'm also going to check out the Hub, which is the Realtor resource for conversation. And frankly, anybody can look at the general forum if you're just paying attention, although I know it can be a dumpster fire, but frankly, everything on the internet can. I'm also going to watch what's happening on the news cycle front. So I'm watching my local business journal, which is the Charlotte Business Journal. I'm watching the state legislative action because a lot of stuff that happens there has to do with real estate, jobs, and development and such. And then I keep an eye on what's happening in DC because one of the things that's coming out in a lot of voter polls is that voters are very intrigued by what the answers are going to be to the housing shortage, to the affordability situation that's going on. In light of the economy, which is having a lot of hiccups, housing is still high, it's still scarce. So everybody's looking for answers. So I look in the data pockets for answers for my questions. I don't really read Inman News for information because I find it's more opinion than it is information. And I have enough opinions. Frankly, I just need to be looking for information. For economic data, I'm watching some of the drops on data, and you can find that on some really great accounts on Twitter, one of which is Zero Hedge. The other one is QTR, Quote the Raven. It's a wonderful Substack to read if you're looking for data points. And frankly, y'all, a lot of housing data that is intriguing if you're looking at future casting the market is coming from outside of real estate people. So you always want to think about the external people that are looking at the trajectory of real estate because it is one of the largest factors in GDP, and the opinions don't just come from inside the business. Now, if you're in leadership or you're involved in the trade association side of real estate, I want you to read the emails that come from your association. Think about it. There's so much information that drops coming from the data points that come out of the multiple listing service, the updates that happen in regard to some of the lawsuits in the profession right now. And in fact, the information on those you can find at competition.realtor. So there are some very specific places. And for current industry topics on what happens in Washington, D.C. regarding realtors and political advocacy, you can go to realtorparty.realtor. Okay. Ashley sent me a really interesting question here. Hey, Ashley. And I had to learn that she's from the DMV, and that is DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I saw DMV and I thought about that place where I don't want to stand in line. Okay. She said, how do you figure out which states or areas buyers are coming from to your area? I want to develop relationships with other agents. Oh, I love you for that, sister. There's a couple of resources for determining the import-exports for the area where you live. The first one is realtor.com. They have a lot of data inside that website that shows who's looking from where. When you're the person who said yes to the terms of service and then you said yes to cookies, guess what? Hey, you're part of big data. Luckily, some of the big data that's out there is really helpful. So go look at some of that information on realtor.com. You can also pull import-export information from census.gov. That's, of course, the U.S. Census data, which is fairly accurate right now in so much as people responded to it last year. Now, when we get further out into the 10-year cycle, it won't be nearly as effective. But right now, tons of data at census.gov. Another really interesting resource you could check out is your local chamber of commerce. You'd be surprised how much the local chamber has in the way of information tracking who's coming in, who's leaving, because a lot of it is closely correlated with jobs that are coming into your area. Now, once you spot the areas, here's my criteria for finding a great referral agent. First of all, I want to know if they carry the CRS designation. That's the Certified Residential Specialist. Why? Because to get the CRS designation, you have to have closed a certain number of transactions and you've paid for and taken a lot of additional education. It doesn't mean that you're not a great realtor if you haven't sold very much or if you haven't taken the education. But how would I know that? Those are some of the things that I'm looking for. I want to make sure that if I'm building a relationship, they know what they're doing. And I know that that's going to rub a lot of y'all the wrong way, but let's call it what it is. We're in a business with almost 1.6 million realtors. There's a lot of mediocrity in that group. Now, if you are in that mediocre group, all right, great. Take your game up a notch. I'm all in favor of that. The classes are at crs.com. You'll be shocked at how much you can learn. Frankly, I'm learning every day. I was just on a CRS webinar last week. It was CRS week. I wrote down 3 pages of notes because I'm always wanting to figure out who's doing something better than me, and then I want to replicate that in my market. That's one of the beauties of that network is you can go hang out with other professionals that are top drawer, share ideas to make a higher level of excellence for real estate in your area. Now, the second thing I want my referral partners to have, I want them to be major investors in RPAC. Now, if you want to know what that means they're dialed in to what happens with political advocacy in realtor world, which means they know what's happening with planning and zoning in that local market. They know what's happening in their state, and they may or may not be dialed into DC, but that's not my primary reason for wanting them to be engaged. It's because so much of what happens in real estate hinges on what happens on the local level. We know that one reason for the housing prices to be so high is the high cost of permits, zoning regulations, and overlays in the local market. When those costs get added in, it goes to the bottom line, which is what the buyer pays. I need to make sure that the realtor who I'm communicating with is paying attention to that, because then they can be a better advocate for the people we know together on the ground. If you're not involved in that side of things, again, you can go to realtorparty.realtor for information or send me a DM and I can explain that to you as well. All right. I wish I could say your name without messing it up. Mod, M-O-H-D, Mod. So I apologize if I got it wrong, but hopefully I landed on it correctly. He's asking a very important question. Well, I guess it's a he. I don't have the foggiest idea. So Mod, I'm so sorry if I got it wrong. You can DM me and slap me with a wet noodle, or you can just say, it's all right, girl, because my name's been misspelled plenty of times in my life. All right. How do I take my business to the next level? All right, this will actually apply no matter what business you're in, whether you're real estate, mortgage lending, running a landscaping business. The first thing you have to do to take your business to the next level is treat it like a business. And by that, I mean pay attention to your numbers. You need to have a separate P&L for your business, and you need to monitor that on a regular basis. You should have separate bank accounts for your business. You should have a separate credit card for your business so that everything can be categorized. That matters tremendously in helping you start watching your numbers. Too many people want to just go sell more to make up for their bad habits. And I've seen this from realtors for years. You get into a bad financial crunch and the answer is, I'll sell another house. That's not always the answer. The answer should be, where did my money go so I can tighten up the leaks? And then you will also start exploring where the business then actually did come from, because as you tighten up the finances for your business, you're going to start watching the business that you have. Where did it originate? How did they come to find you? Why did they choose you? And one of the things you will start to find is that there is actually a through line. Just like I mentioned about leadership before, there's a through line amongst your clients. There's something they have in common, and it's not just you. It's something about your business style that attracted them and that pulled them in and helped connect them to you over time. When you start paying attention to those things, you start to see where your business is coming from and can be going. Next level is actually not about hiring the right coach or buying the right website. There is no silver bullet to it. It's really hard work paying attention to the foundations. And the way I look at it as this, now, of course, I'm in North Carolina. I'm very familiar with trailer houses, and I think they are the original affordable housing, and nobody should make fun of them. But if you have a single wide trailer house and you do not have it on a permanent brick foundation, and you go to add a second story, you're actually making it more untenable, which makes it worse for everybody in it. Before you add that second story, fix the foundation. Once the foundation's in place, you can do a lot of things to expand and build a more creative opportunity for the future. And the other thing I'll tell you there, Maud, is that after you fix your foundation, the next thing that takes your business next level is working every day. Real estate's not a hobby. Too many people treat this like a side hustle or a side gig. No. It's not like Uber where you turn it on and turn it off when you want to work. If you want this to really be your professional life and an endeavor that matters to the people you serve, treat it like a real job. Get up, get dressed, put your face on. Start work at 8, 8:30, 9 o'clock like a regular working person, and then do the work all day. Don't turn on your social media and let your life get sucked out of your hands. Start paying attention to your outbound phone calls. Start paying attention to the daily activities that you have. And then when 5:30 or 6 o'clock come, it's all right to turn it off and eat supper. And maybe you want to work again later that night, and maybe you don't. But if you will treat real estate like a real job, the rewards are huge. I hope this helped. Anybody that has your own question, you need a little bit of Leigh Brown spice on life, you just let me know in the comments or in DMs. And I'll see you back here on Thursday for some more Q&A.